I am well aware that the Nuggets and the Timberwolves series is already underway, but I was waiting on my Cavs to take care of business. Luckily for me, they did that. Now we have the full slate of second round games, and I'm going to break it down for you. So, second round NBA predictions on tap today. Drop your predictions in the comments, but I do want to cover some business before we get into the video. If you missed it, of course, check me out on my socials. I know I'm blocking it right now, but just type in my name, you'll find it, my channel name. We just recently streamed for Bleacher Report. Again, we talked about Kevin Durant, some potential landing spots he could go. It's still up on the BR app, so if you're interested, go check that out. But take it easy on me. It's my first ever live stream. But again, we're going to be doing that from now on here. So again, we're taking our channel to that next level. We just passed 17,000 subscribers. None of it could be possible without you guys at home. So thank you for all the support. But that's enough yapping. Let's get into the first matchup here in the Western Conference. The one seed, the youngest one seed of all time, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not only were they the youngest one seed, but they took care of business like a veteran team in that first round. 4-0 sweep against a Zion-less Pelicans team. They go on to face my favorite Cinderella team all year, the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks. Of course, it was a little bit rocky, but they got it done in 6 against a Kawhi-less LA Clippers team. I bring those up because these are two teams that faced other, their opponents didn't have their best players in that first round matchup. Regardless, of course, you see throughout the regular season, Oklahoma City had a better regular season record, better offensive and defensive rating as well. And then when we look at the matchups here, I know you see my prediction, but we're going to talk about it. The Thunder, of course, they have really the advantage from the 3 spot down as far as small forward, power forward, center, and coaching advantage. But that's the story all year for Dallas. It's been their backcourt, and can they get some help, enough help from everybody else? That's been the story. But of course, this team is now in a way better position than when these teams last faced, because outside of the last game of the season, this team has now added much needed, I guess, big men there in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, as you saw here on this first screen. Oklahoma City is 3-1 against Dallas this year. One of those games we don't talk about because, of course, that was late in the season when both teams were resting their stars. But in those other 3 matchups, either Luka didn't play or Kyrie didn't play. So believe it or not, this is actually the first time this season where Luka and Kyrie together are going to be playing the Oklahoma City Thunder and Shea on the court at the same time as well. So interested to see what exactly we get here. I believe game 1 is tonight here at 10 o'clock on Monday, excuse me. I got my days all mixed up here because we're adding fantasy football back into the mix. But regardless, I think, I'm going to continue to ride with the team that I said prior to the season, before they added the big men, that this is the biggest threat to the Nuggets in the Western Conference. I truly believe that. It might, and now whether if they'll meet them in the Western Conference Finals, that's a little different because now Minnesota is playing outside of their mind. But Dallas, I just think with the star power that they have, they will eventually take care of this younger Thunder team. Maybe the moment gets a little bit too big for Shea and the crew. I do want to clarify. I don't think that the Thunder let the moment get too big for them. They're such a veteran team mentally, if that makes any sense. But I think Dallas, just with the fact that Kyrie and Luka have been there, they've done that. They're going to will them over the edge, but it won't be in anything less than 6 games if Dallas were to win this series. My only worry for Dallas, and the reason I can easily see the Thunder winning this in as early as 5 games, as crazy as that might sound, is because Dallas has these quarters where you're scoring less than 15 points because they go through these droughts where if Luka's not making his shots or if he's not creating and Kyrie isn't doing that, then who else is producing for this team? And that's some of the problems they ran in those 2 losses to the Clippers in that first round matchup. So I'm a little bit worried about the Dallas consistency on the offensive side of the floor. However, I think now that this team, they have the jitters out the way. They got out of the first round. Let's start to take some care of business because we have our eyes set on bigger and better things. So I'll take Dallas in 6 here. But again, that's best case scenario for Dallas, in my opinion, because this Thunder team is so damn good. But again, great season from Mark Daigneault, of course, coach of the year, and this young and fun Thunder team. Also didn't throw it out there, but this is a matchup of 2 of the top 3 MVP candidates here in 2024. But then we move over here to the 2-3 matchup. This matchup's already gotten underway. We saw game one 2 days ago, and Anthony Edwards was, of course, a superhero for his team, carrying his team on his back, dropping 35 plus, and of course carried this Timberwolves team to a game one victory, stealing home court. Again, as the road team, especially in the, from the second round and on, as a road team in a series, your goal is just to win one, right? And now if you win both on the road, of course, you're in a great position to just win the series. But this is why game two tonight is so pivotal for the Denver Nuggets, because if you drop both of your home games to the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't know if you're going to be able to bounce back from that. I think tonight might decide who wins this series, or at least how quickly one team will win this series. Because if the Timberwolves go into Denver tonight, 2 games in a row, they take care of business, this series is going to be over in 5 games. And I full-heartedly believe that, because this Timberwolves team is just deep, and mentally they know that there's bigger things than the second round matchup against the Denver Nuggets. But of course, they're still here and they're still mentally ready to take care of business. But the Denver Nuggets, of course, in that first round, if we take a step back, they beat the Lakers in a 5-game series, even though they were down for 75% of that series. They ended up winning the series in a gentleman's sweep. For the Timberwolves, of course, they swept the Phoenix Suns with a big 3-headed monster. Again, I'm having a little bit of a nostalgia here. I talked about that Suns team for a long time here on that BR live stream. So again, if you're interested, check out 5 potential landing spots for Kevin Durant. More numbers on that stream, of course, do things for me. But the Timberwolves, of course, they took care of business in game one, and what the blueprint was kind of laid out for their game plan. We're going to make Jokic work. We're going to tire him out because we have 3 legitimate bigs that we can throw on Nikola Jokic, and we're going to make him do everything, especially when their backcourt, like Jamal Murray, is banged up with his calf, like KCP is banged up in his own right. And then outside of those guys, you have a shaky bench. So Minnesota came into this series and let's say, we're going to make Jokic earn it. And if he earns it to, a degree of dropping a 40-point triple-double a night, then I think we can accept defeat. But that's just not going to be the case when you have Rudy Gobert, the defensive player of the year for the 4th time in his career. Shout out to him, right? I'm not sure if that's been announced yet, but he'll end up winning it here, I'm pretty sure. Karl-Anthony Towns played pretty good defense in that game one, and Naz Reid didn't do much in the first half, but second half came around, and Naz Reid was the spark that they needed. Of course, there's a reason he's also going to be winning the 6th Man of the Year. This Timberwolves team is loaded. I think also they have the depth advantage as well, which is what I mentioned last week when I talked about this potential matchup. They have the depth advantage, of course, and they have a guy in Anthony Edwards that's just a dog, right? And a guy that has an argument now to be a top 10 player in the world outside of this playoff series. But again, it's hard for me to go against the champs. I will go with them in 7 games still. My prediction going into that game one was 6 games. So with the Timberwolves grabbing a game, logically, I just bump it down a game. So Denver in 7 games in a playoff miracle, or well, not a playoff miracle, but this is going to be a series we look back on, is a great way to put it. But of course, you see the positional advantages there. I would still say Jokic, of course, obviously best player in the series. Karl-Anthony Towns, I said coming into the series, was going to be the X factor, and I'm interested to see, how he plays going forward, because if he plays like he did in game one, the Timberwolves are not only going to the semis, they're going to the NBA Finals if Cat played like he did in game number 1 for the remainder of the playoffs. But again, I'm going to take the Nuggets in 7. It's hard to bet against the champs, especially with how good they are at home. I have no doubt they're going to win tonight to tie it up 1-1, and they can steal a game on the road there in Minnesota. And of course, in this scenario, they would close it off at home. They're in game 7. But of course, we got to have at least one game 7 in every round. And I'm going to say that it's going to be this Nuggets and Timberwolves series, in a series that we're going to remember for a very long time. But instant classic series. I'm going to have the Nuggets and the champs, just using, the fact that they've been there before. They're going to step their game up, and Jokic is going to turn into Superman. Call me crazy. This might be the best series we see from Jokic going forward in his career so far, because he already knows it's going to be this kind of fight. But again, Nuggets in 7. I'm going to stick with that. I'm not going to change my prediction off of game 1. In the Eastern Conference, we'll make this one quick. The Celtics, of course, come in as a heavy favorite. I think they're minus 1,200 to win the series. Absolutely insane. But of course, 4-1 series. I guess there were 4-1 against the Miami Heat in the first round against a team that didn't have Jimmy Butler, and that's kind of been the Celtics' MO over their, this Jason Tatum run, this era rather is a great way to put it, where in the playoffs, they play down to their competition sometimes. And of course, like we saw in that Heat game, where if the Heat get hot, the Celtics still had a chance to win that game. But since they were playing down to their competition, the Heat, of course, with Spo and his greatness, ended up stealing one there in that first round series. But the Celtics still took care of business in 5 games, and now they have a Cavaliers team that their future is kind of on the line. The Cavaliers, of course, just took down the Magic in Game 7 after coming back down 18 points, the largest comeback in Game 7 history. Of course, that is according to ESPN. But the Celtics come on again as the odds-on favorite. When we look at the actual matchups here, they have the advantages pretty much everywhere. Now, I will say, Jared Allen is expected to return for Game 1 of this series. And I think if the Cavs, I'm a Cavs fan, if the Cavs want any hope in this series, not only is Jared Allen going to have to come back, but he's going to have to come back and play like that 15 and 15 version that we saw against the Orlando Magic there in the first 2 games of that first round series. He's going to have to come back and he's going to have to rebound this ball every single time. He's going to have to give the Cavaliers as many opportunities as possible in this series. I'm worried that Darius Garland's going to be pretty much a nothing. We know Donovan Mitchell is going to be double teamed this entire series. So who else is going to be able to step up? Can Mobley finally have that breakout playoff series? He had some moments in Game 1 in that first round series. Defensive monster, had a lot of blocks, but we know Evan Mobley, of course, is a defensive monster. How about offensively? Right, your top 3 pick. Let's go out there and let's break out a little bit. This would be the series for Evan Mobley to show out and average 20 from the floor. If he can average 20, we just need Mitchell to give us 30. Again, give us 30 against the best defense in basketball. But Mitchell can put up 30 in a playoff series. If we can get 20 from Mobley, I think the Cavs have a small 2% chance to win this series. But ultimately, with that being said, even with Kristaps Porzingis out, I think he can rest this entire series because the Celtics are probably going to sweep us Cavaliers. I'm a Cavs fan. I hope we can go fight. I hope we can go out there and make magic happen and pull off the upsets because everyone is expecting the Celtics to come out of the Eastern Conference. But as a Cavs fan, I'm going to be realistic here on today's podcast. At the very best situation for us, maybe we sneak 2 games. That's the absolute best case scenario. But I can't see us getting more than 2. So, I'm going to play it here on the side of caution. I'm going to say the Celtics, they just have that mentality. They have that toughness that's really going to get to the Cavaliers. And if they just double Donovan Mitchell, who else is going to step up? Right? And they don't even really need to double Donovan Mitchell because he's going to be seeing either Drew Holiday, Derek Brown, or Jaylen Brown the entire series. So already he's going to have to work. But if you double team him, it kind of makes him a 0 in this series. So who else is going to step up? Can Garland step up and give us 20 a night? Can Mobley step up and give us 20 a night? Can Strus finally be what we paid for, a consistent outside shooter and space the floor, make the job easier for our star guards? That, there's a lot of questions here for this Cavaliers offense. I'm not sure how it's going to go. For that reason, even with Al Horford as the starting center, I'm going to go with the Celtics in 4 games. Of course, Celtics now turn that switch, and now they're ready to compete for a title. For the final second-round matchup, the New York Knicks versus the Indiana Pacers. I think this is going to be a legendary instant classic series, just like the Nuggets and, of course, well, I guess really, but just like both of the Western Conference series there, I'm excited for all 3 of those. But for this matchup, of course, the Knicks, they took care of business in round 1. I think they won 4-2 against the Philadelphia 76ers, or 4-1, excuse me. For the Pacers, you won 4-2 against a team with no Giannis and Dame for half the series, but you still took care of business, and that's the most important thing for this young and fun Indiana Pacers team. And of course, Indiana is 2-1 against the Knicks this season. And yes, I checked. Everybody played in those games, especially even Julius Randle played in 2 of those games. So the Pacers have beaten this Knicks team when they're at full strength, and I'm interested to see if that can carry over here into the second round of the playoffs here, because this Pacers team, to me, I want to see what version we're getting. Because if you watch this Pacers team in that first round, in the first 3 games, they heavily featured Pascal Siakam. He was running the offense most of the time. He was getting the ball down low, and they were letting him go to work. And of course, in games 1 and 2, he had 2 straight games of 35 plus points and 10 plus rebounds. Absolutely insane production. But after game 2, they went away from running the offense through Pascal. Of course, that was when Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton started to find their stroke, of course, from outside. And then that kind of, it was zero Pascal out of the offensive side of the ball. So I'm interested to see, are we going to get a Pascal focused offense here, especially because instead of going against Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, he's not going to be going against a team where, Isaiah Hartenstein's going to be guarding Miles Turner. So you're going to have Josh Hart on Pascal Siakam. Is that going to be the choice? Pascal should look at that and say, barbecue chicken, let me go to work. Even though Josh Hart's a great defender, I don't know if he has the strength and the endurance to guard a guy like Pascal who's going to bang all game long. So interested to see what style of offense we get from the Pacers. Is it going to be Pascal focused or is it going to be Tyrese Halliburton focused? I'm interested to see how that goes. But the Knicks, of course, I think as of right now, they have the best chance in the Eastern Conference to knock off the Boston Celtics. And for that reason, I think they're going to win this series in 5. I think that they're just too tough, or I guess OG Anunoby can guard Pascal Siakam as well. This is a Knicks team that just has too much defense. Of course, they're made for this moment. Now, again, I've also said on this podcast, and I said it in my round 1 predictions, this Pacers team has the most range in the entire NBA as far as a series-to-series basis, because this is a team that runs, they gun, and of course, they shoot more threes than anybody in the league. And that was a reason why, of course, when it's all clicking at one point in time early in the season, they were the best offense of all time statistically. Now, of course, that took a dip with the Pascal addition, but now we're here in the playoffs, and I say that they have the most range because if they're running up and down the court, if they're making all of their threes or a good percentage of them, they're going to sweep everybody they run into because there's not going to be a team on most nights that can outscore them if they're making the majority of their threes like they were in the regular season. But on the flip side, we've seen throughout history that play style has gotten teams swept. And those have been teams that have blown big leads in playoff series because the shot's just not falling. It is really the moniker of living and dying by the three-point shot. But I think this Knicks team is a team that is great at forcing teams off the three-point line. And that's going to mess with the Indiana Pacers here. And that's why I'm interested to see if they run the offense through a guy like Pascal Siakam. That is something I'm interested to see outside of running it through Tyrese Halliburton. But this Knicks team just has too much defense to match up with everybody that the Pacers do have. And I'm interested to see exactly how these games go. But I will take the Knicks with their defense, with their mentality, to win this in a gentleman's sweep, and I'll give the Pacers one game, maybe game 3, to make it interesting for us at home. But that is going to wrap up my predictions for the second round. We'll take a quick look here at my conference finals matchups. In the Western Conference, I have the Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks. Denver's 2-1 in the series this year. The last time these teams matched up, of course, Kyrie had that magical running floater with the left hand. The greatest game, I think, all season long so far. And of course, if we get any resemblance of that in this playoff series, it's going to be one to remember. In the Eastern Conference, though, it's chalk, right? It's the 1 seed and the 2 seed. But again, sometimes 1 + 1 = 2 here in the sports world. Not always does it have to be a complicated equation. The Celtics, of course, the Knicks, Boston is 4-1 in that series all season long. Interested to see how that plays out here in the postseason. But those are my final 4 teams. And let's get into the Elite 8. So this might be a video in its own, but of course, if you're seeing this elsewhere, well, I guess if you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you made it to this point in the video. But when we dive into these final 8 teams, I want to rank these teams going into tonight's games on Monday. How likely are they to win the NBA Finals? So we take into account their current matchup. We take into account their potential matchups down the road. And of course, if they were to make it to the finals, who's someone they would match up with? Basically, we're looking at their potential road to winning the finals. How likely is it do I see here in the coming weeks? So let's get into it. At number 8, it is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They would have to go through the Boston Celtics, most likely the New York Knicks, and then whoever makes it out that Western Conference. I'm humble. I'm a Cavs fan. I think best case scenario for us in the second round is to get one game off the Celtics. If we get more, of course, I'm all for it. But I'm being realistic. Cavaliers probably going to get swept here in the second round. And of course, you can't win an NBA Finals if you can't get past your second round matchup. At number 7, it is the Indiana Pacers. Again, I do have the Knicks in 5 in this series, and for that reason, I have them this low. But if they were to get past the Knicks, they would go up against the Boston Celtics more likely than not. And if you could get past the mighty Celtics, do you think you can get past the Celtics and the Denver Nuggets? Let's say I don't think that's possible. Indiana Pacers here with this high-powered offense at number 7. But again, if they make their shots, they could easily be number 1 on this list. At number 6, the Oklahoma City Thunder took care of business in round 1. They play a Dallas Mavericks team in round 2. Interesting second round matchup. I think it's going under the radar because of how great that Nuggets and Timberwolves series looks. But again, this team is young, they're hungry, and they're proven that they're ready for the moment. So I'm interested to see how aggressive they come out here in this game 1 tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. But for now, I think, again, saying they'd have to go through the Mavericks, which I don't think is going to happen. They would have to go through either the Timberwolves or the Nuggets then in the conference semis. I don't know if that's going to happen. And then, of course, they'd have to face the Boston Celtics. I'm going to say the Thunder, they're fun. Of course, have a great season so far. And I think they take the Dallas Mavericks probably to 6 or 7 games. For the Dallas Mavericks at number 5, simply for the fact that I think they win this series against the Thunder, but you can flip-flop these teams. The only reason I've moved this Dallas Mavericks team now to the bottom half of this list is because of the fact that they've had some of those quarters where it's 12-point quarters, 14-point quarters, and that's the reason they lost both of those games to the Clippers. It just can't happen here against the Thunder. The Thunder are too well-rounded. They're too ready for the moment. That can't happen against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but I don't think it'll happen outside of maybe 1 or 2 games. So the Dallas Mavericks, for the simple fact that I think they can beat the Thunder, and I think they have that man in Luka Doncic and Kyrie, where they are proven playoff performers, they can get past the Denver Nuggets if those two dudes are clicking. So for that reason, I'm going to have the Dallas Mavericks here at number 5. At number 4, it is going to be, at number 4, the New York Knicks. Of course, we had some technical difficulties. But at number 4, the New York Knicks, I think, of course, first round took care of business against Joel Embiid. They now play a very fast-paced team here in the Indiana Pacers. It's a clash of styles because the Knicks like to slow it down, muck you up. Of course, the Pacers are anything but that. But I think the Knicks can take care of business against the Pacers in 5. They can go on to play the Boston Celtics. And if they can beat the Celtics, they're going to be going off a high going there into the finals because the Celtics are so dang great. But at number 3, the Timberwolves, I moved them up this list. I'm not going to lie. They were at number 4. Now they're at number 3 because of how great and how ready for the moment they were in that game 1 against the Denver Nuggets. And after the game, I mean, the whole team, they weren't really too happy. Of course, they were happy they got the win, but they know that there's more than just getting one game in this series. So their mentality, they're ready to take this series far, if need be, against the Denver Nuggets. But right now, I mean, this team looks special. And if they can beat the Denver Nuggets, I don't know if there's a team that can stop them, including my beloved Dallas Mavericks. And number 2, the Boston Celtics. I think they're going to sweep the Cavs, right? If not, it'll be a gentleman's sweep. Then they face the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, of course, Boston had their number in the regular season. Statistically, this Boston Celtics team is the 3rd best team of all time, according to net rating. So interested to see how how that continues to translate throughout the postseason. My only worry about them against the Cavs is Al Horford going to be able to hold up for the entire game against guys like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, saying that Kristaps might be out the majority of the series. But again, I think they will, and they'll get Kristaps back in round 3 against the Knicks. And of course, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder going against a former team. And then at number 1, until they are dethroned, they're going to be number 1. The Denver Nuggets currently down 0-1, but my confidence is not wavered here in this first round series. They're going to bounce back. They're going to win tonight. And of course, they're going to probably win this series in 6 or 7 games, in my opinion. But again, if Minnesota wins this series, I think, who's going to stop them in the Western Conference? That's my biggest question. But that is my top 8 as far as who is most likely, depending on their path, to win the NBA Finals. So that is episode 170 in the books. Of course, We talked about the second round matchups. I gave you my predictions. I gave you power rankings going into this second round. Now, important announcements here before we wrap up the show, so don't click off yet. But starting tomorrow and Wednesday, I'm going to be releasing some fantasy football podcasts here on the channel. So again, we started in early May last year, and this year we're going to do the exact same. And there's, I always say you're never too early to start your fantasy football prep. You're never too early to start looking at player situations and just getting the most amount of knowledge possible going into that next fantasy season, because a lot of us, well, we put money down on our fantasy football leagues. So if you're putting money down, you might as well do it for a purpose and, of course, be well prepared going into that. So I say that to say tomorrow and Wednesday, we're going to be starting our fantasy football countdown list from 20 through 11. And, of course, throughout the weeks, we'll get down to who's number one. But after that, starting next week, from Monday through Thursday, it'll be 4 podcasts a week until the Super Bowl is over in February. Yes, I said that right. 2 fantasy podcasts a week, 1 NBA and 1 NFL every single week, of course, until February. So we're going to be grinding here on this channel. So if you enjoy sports content, drop a like, subscribe, help us get to 18,000, because you guys just helped us pass 17. Couldn't be more excited for the journey ahead of us, especially now with the partnership with BR. It's all because of you guys. So thank you for all the support. But I'll see you guys tomorrow for some quarterback rankings. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, get out of here.